Hi, it's Ian here. Welcome to another 5-minute marketing tip. On last week's tip, I talked about the vital topic of getting back in touch with some of your best contacts that you've dropped out of touch with. We talked about the psychology of getting back in touch, and I gave you a simple technique to reconnect with people using LinkedIn and connecting by adding value by sending them to a useful piece of content. Now, in this week's tip, I'm going to give you 3 more ways of getting back in touch that are equally, if not more, effective. So I'll see you after the swoosh. Hi, welcome back. So last week's tip was all about getting back in touch, and I showed you a way of getting back in touch that added value by sharing a piece of content that you've either created yourself or you found. Now, I'm going to give you 3 more ways of getting back in touch. Each of those also gets back in touch by adding value. And you always want to make sure that when you're getting back in touch with contacts who you've kind of got out of connection with, that you want to be trying to add value as you get back in touch rather than asking for a favor. So the first way of adding value when you get back in touch is to invite them to an event or something you're going to that you think they will find valuable too. Now, the best way of doing this is whenever you get invited to an event yourself, so that could be a conference, it could be a networking event, any kind of thing where you're going to go out, leave the office and go and do something that you might find useful, think about who from your current contact base you could invite to that as well as a kind of nurturing the relationship type activity, and then go back on your lost contacts that you'd like to get back in touch with and think of who of those folks you think would appreciate going to that event as well. Now, that works really well from a couple of perspectives. One is they don't even have to come along to the event to appreciate the thought of you inviting them, and that means you've got back in touch. So the invitation itself, it gets you back in touch. They might turn it down, but they'll be appreciative of the invite, and then you can then follow up by asking what they're doing now, how things are going, etc. So you've got the conversation going. The second good thing that happens is if they do come along to the event, then both of you are outside the normal work environment. So you haven't got all the day-to-day pressures going on. So you can grab a coffee, or you can, sit and chat, or stand and chat at a networking event, go off and grab lunch together if it's a conference or whatever. So you get a nice piece of time with them to re-establish that relationship away from the pressures of day-to-day work. Now, the second method is really a kind of step up from the invitation method. It's a way of kind of going overboard to get back in touch with people, and that's to organise your own event. Now, I don't mean a conference, of course, or anything like that. What I mean, though, is if there are half a dozen or more of your kind of contacts who used to work together or be in some kind of social gathering together or whatever, people who used to know each other, and you've all kind of dropped out of touch, then you can arrange a get-together, a reunion. Now, that reunion could be just drinks in a pub, it could be going out for a meal together, it could be as much as inviting them over to your house for a kind of dinner party type environment. But either way, you are inviting the gang to get back together. You're really adding value because not only are they getting back in touch with you, but they're also getting back in touch with all those other useful contacts that they've dropped out of touch with. And as the host, of course, you then have the opportunity to interact with everyone before the event as you sort out the invitations, at the event to make reintroductions. There's always a topic of conversation because you're the host, and after the event to follow up, see whether things went well. Is there anyone they think you should invite to the next event, etc., etc. So it gives you loads of opportunities to get back in touch, and you're adding a whole load of value because not only are they reconnecting with you, they're reconnecting with all these other good contacts that they've dropped out of touch with themselves. Now, the final method for getting back in touch is something I first heard of from James Altucher. So if you have not read any of Altucher's books, I would particularly recommend his first big one anyway, Choose Yourself. Do yourself a favour, go off and grab that on Amazon. Now, in there you'll find something he calls his daily practice, and one element of his daily practice is to exercise your creativity muscle by every day sitting and writing 10 ideas about something. So those 10 ideas could be 10 ideas for a blog post, or 10 ideas for how to get to work more quickly, 10 ideas for improving my relationship with my children. And of course, one thing you can do 10 ideas for is 10 ideas that would be useful to a specific person. So if you're thinking of getting back in touch with someone, go and look at their LinkedIn profile, their website, what they're doing in the news, etc., and then brainstorm for yourself 10 ideas about that would be valuable and useful to them. So you might look at their website and think, actually they can make some improvements here. Or they might write a blog and you could think 10 ideas for great articles for you to write for your blog. Or you could look at their business as a whole and you could see that they're expanding geographically, and you could do 10 ideas for places for you to go and expand that would be really useful for you. Now come up with the ideas, put some thought, some research into it, really follow it up, make a good job of it, and then make the introduction by giving those 10 ideas. Now, apart from the fact that it'll help exercise your creativity muscle and help you be more creative in future, it will also be adding value on that connection. Now, if you think it's going to feel a bit weird reconnecting with someone and saying, hey, here are 10 ideas for you, firstly, make sure they're not criticisms. They are positively framed ideas. Secondly, if it still feels a bit weird saying, hey, you can use a phrasing like, hey, haven't spoken for a while. It's great when we worked together back in Italy all those years ago. I've been reconnecting with some of my old contacts recently, and as an exercise for myself to help, get my creativity juices flowing, I've been thinking of 10 ideas that I think could help each of them and their businesses. The 10 things I came up with for you are bang, 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 bang. Hope you find them useful. And you give those ideas to them with no thought of how those ideas would pay back or anything. They're just there to be really useful to them. But that can really work. If you read Altucher's book, you'll see that when he was trying to get going in business, he wrote to hundreds of people trying to beg favours, get to meet them, have a coffee with them, and got absolutely nowhere, not a single response. But then he used this 10 idea approach, and out of the 10 people he sent 10 ideas to, 3 of them followed up, and that got him a gig writing financial articles, which turned into his next business. It got him a gig creating financial software for a big investor, etc., etc. So it really does work. People appreciate the thought that you're thinking of ideas to help them, and if those ideas are good, it can trigger, it builds your credibility and it can trigger all sorts of thoughts with them. It feels a little bit brave to do it, I have to admit. It feels like you're kind of pushing your ideas on them, but if you phrase it correctly and gently when you're connecting with them, and as I said, you can even say, hey, I'm going through an exercise of creating ideas for people when I reconnect with them, then it can work and it doesn't feel quite so embarrassing. Eventually people will get used to you sending them 10 ideas if it's something you do on a regular basis. That's it for this week. Hope you found those 3 ways of reconnecting useful. I'll see you next week.